Hello, all the online folks. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Be sure to say hello when you log on. I'd love to. Actually, if you're not logged on, you can't hear me, so never mind. But if you are logged on, say hello. All right, let's go ahead and start. We've got our online folks online. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday night loving kindness class. My name is Alex. It's wonderful to be here with everybody here in the temple. Not very many people, and then people online. Also, not very many people, but that's okay. It doesn't matter how many people there are. I remember back in the day when the Dharma Bum Temple first opened and we first started having classes, and this was like 2000 and like probably 2008. We kind of went to a different place and then came back to Second Avenue in 2008. And then that's when I started leading classes, and you know, that was a really, really small space, and it wasn't easy to get to. And, you know, it was just, you know, it still holds a place in my heart because it was such a wonderfully lovely little space. But, you know, classes weren't always super well attended, especially at first. And, you know, sometimes, you know, we would get a little bit disheartened when not a lot of people would show up, but you tend to get over it. Look, we're here just trying to share the Dharma with whomever shows up, and it doesn't matter whether it's one person or two person or 50 people or 100 people. You know, our job is the same, right? It's just to share in the Dharma and to share in this wonderful practice that hopefully will lead to the end of our suffering. And so we all just kind of got used to it. And one time there were these Sri Lankan monks, Buddhist monks, who came and wanted to do a series of teachings. And I forget which day it was. I think it was Wednesday, on a Wednesday. And they were, I think, replacing my class or something like that. And so the first time, I think they had 6 or 7 show up, which was, you know, they were, you know, a little, you know, taken aback that it was so small. And then the next day, it was only like maybe 1 or 2 people. And they were like, why isn't anybody showing up? Why isn't anybody showing up? So even the Sri Lankan monks were like, why isn't anybody showing up? I'm like, look, don't freak out. That's just the way it is. This is not a country where, you know, Buddhism is established. And, you know, there's other factors as well, like location. And so we're just doing our best to share the Dharma. And so I remember that. And we're just doing what we're doing. I'm just happy to do it. And so we're going to do our wonderful loving kindness meditation. We're going to have story time. We're going to talk about Sariputra. And Sariputra was probably, you know, the Buddha had 2 chief disciples, and Sariputra was maybe a little bit more senior than his friend Moggallana, but they were, you know, they were very much linked. So we're going to have that wonderful story, and I was just kind of going over it again, and wow, it's a wonderful story, and I really, really like it. So maybe our meditation is not going to be quite as long, so I can get through the story. Part of it I told a few weeks ago, and so I'll tell that part as well. All right. So I know you're not new. This is not your feet. You've been here before, yeah. Is this your first time here, or you've been here before?
Other nights. This is my first time.
First time to Wednesday. Wonderful. Wonderful. Happy to have you. Hello online. I think that's Jean. Yeah, Jean and Brian and Linda. Hello, guys. Wonderful to see you. So let's go ahead and let's have our meditation on loving kindness. If you're unfamiliar with this, I'm going to guide it. So let's just go ahead and get into our seated position, our nice, comfortable seated position. Turn on my Let's go do it. So just allow your eyes to close, making sure you have that position that's nice and comfortable for you, nice and sustainable, so you're not likely to move around too much. And so just for the first few minutes, we just want to get connected to the breath in a loving and a kind way. Just take a deep breath all the way in and all the way out. Focusing your breath at the base of the nostrils, just feeling the air go in and out as you breathe. Or maybe focusing on the belly or the chest, feeling its expansion and contraction as you breathe. And so this way of being mindful of the breath tends to keep the mind focused, although inevitably the mind gets lost in thought. Thoughts and pictures just filling the mind. And this is okay. If you have a thought that arises, or if you get distracted by something else, you can just say to yourself, thinking, and then come back to the breath. Just that act of saying thinking will snap the mind back to the present moment, where the important work of meditation can really be done. The present moment is not the goal of meditation, but you can't get to the goal without the present moment. So just breathe in, breathe out. So we'll do this just for the next few minutes to get connected to the breath. And so to begin our practice of metta, loving kindness, unconditional friendliness, goodwill, amity, we're first going to think of a benefactor. And a benefactor is anyone who has in your past shown you great love and great kindness. Someone that's really easy. You just think of this person and you can just start to smile thinking about how much they've meant to you and all the kind and wonderful things that they've done for you. And you can either radiate loving kindness to them, wishing them happiness, wishing they do the things that cause happiness, which is their positive thoughts, words, and deeds. Or you could just repeat phrases of loving kindness to them. Phrases like, may you be happy. May you be safe from inner and outer danger. May you be well in body and mind. May you be at peace and live at ease in this world. So we'll do this for the next few moments. And remember to smile, because it always helps so much. Now shifting our focus from loving kindness for our benefactor to now imagining our benefactor doing this practice for us, wishing us happiness, and either radiating happiness to us, or you can imagine them repeating those same phrases to us. And our only job in this part of the meditation is just to receive all of their loving kindness. And sometimes it could be helpful to put your hand over your heart while you're doing this, while you're imagining your benefactor doing this practice for you. Remember that you already have the experience of their love and kindness in your own heart. So you're just calling this to mind. If there's any part of your heart that feels tightness or tension, or any part of your body that feels tightness or tension, can you just take a deep breath and direct the energy of the breath into that area of tightness or tension? Maybe it relaxes, maybe it just gives it some space, maybe not. Don't spend too much time if it doesn't loosen up. Just concentrate on what can enter the heart. So now for the next few moments, we'll imagine our benefactor doing this practice for us. Now shifting our focus again to now just focusing on loving kindness for yourself. This is probably the most important part of this practice. Because if we can feel what loving kindness feels like in our own heart, we can understand how natural that could be, or just naturally pours out. It supercharges our loving kindness. Everybody has this capability. So just call to mind your own wish to be happy, your own wish to be safe from danger and healthy and just at peace with life. So gently just repeat these phrases of loving kindness for yourself. May I be happy. May I be safe from inner and outer danger. May I be well in body and mind. May I be at peace and live at ease in this world. Or maybe all you ever say is, may I be happy. May I do the things that cause happiness. That's perfect. That is enough. You are enough. And so we'll do this for the next few moments. Loving kindness for oneself. And finally, We can explore the limitless quality of the heart by doing this practice for all beings in all directions. Because the heart has this limitless potential if we nurture it, if we develop it. And so, with that in mind, just all beings in all directions, may all beings be happy. May all beings do the things that cause happiness. And we'll do that to finish this meditation. allow your eyes to open. And just take the next couple of moments or two to stretch your arms and stretch your legs, keeping that mindfulness of loving kindness about you. So, any questions on the instructions or anything that you may have experienced in meditation? I like these questions on experience because there are no wrong answers. That's just your experience. There's like a 10, I think 15-second delay for the people online.
Sometimes my mind wanders, and I have to remind myself to focus on my breath, to bring myself back.
Yeah, and that's the exact right thing to do. Especially when your mind wanders, it's okay just to skate. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to bring myself kind of back to the present with the breath. And once that gets kind of reestablished, and then you just continue what you're doing, and that's perfect. And the key to that is to, when your mind does get lost in thought, to not, punish yourself for like, darn, I lost my train of thought, because this literally happens to everybody. It happens to me. It happens to the most experienced meditators. So it's not getting lost in thought isn't necessarily the goal, but it's knowing what to do when it happens. So I'm glad you're able to do that. That's perfect. Thank you. Okay, so for story time, this is the story of Sariputra. And Sariputra, in some temples in Asia, I think particularly in Sri Lanka sometimes, when at the entrance to the temple, you'll see there's always the Buddha and there's always a monk on each side. And those monks are his two chief disciples, and they're Sariputra and Moggallana. And they came to the Buddha, very shortly after the Buddha became enlightened, within the first year of that happening. And Sariputra and Moggallana, they were really young when they came to the Buddha, but they came just at the right time. So Sariputra and Moggallana are inextricably linked. They were born on the same day. Sariputra and Moggallana, those are their monk names. And so Sariputra, his name was originally Upatissa, and he was born in a city called Upatissa, so they just named him after the city. And he was the son of this woman, her name is Rupasari. And so Moggallana, his original name, his birth name was Kolita, and he was born in a town called Kolita, which I think was really funny. And he was the son of this woman. Her name was Mogali. And so, eventually they took their monk names. And so for now, I'll just call them Sariputra and Moggallana. And again, they were born on the same day. So, they were, educated in the finest schools, Sariputra and Moggallana, and they each had 500, Brahmin youth that they kind of at their command each, because, they were the highest caste, they were the Brahmin caste. And so, one day they were young, they were really young, and, they were up on this, 3-day like festival on the top of a hill, and there was songs and merriment and dancing and games and food and all these different types of things that, young men of privilege had in India. And, Sariputra, he just kind of turns to his friend and says, you know what? I don't see any benefit to any of this. I think I'm going to go seek the path of deliverance. And, Moggallana looked at him and said, I was thinking the same thing. And so that's what they decided to do. And the really interesting thing is, because they were doing it, the 500 people under them each were doing it as well. So that's something to be aware of. And so they set out to seek a teacher. And if you know anything about India of the time, or the story of the Buddha, there were no shortage of teachers. Some knew a lot, some not so much. And they found a teacher. His name was Sanjaya, and he had 500 followers of his own. And so they went to study under him, and Sanjaya was like, "Oh my God, I've like tripled my number overnight of followers." And so they learned Sanjaya's meditation technique. They learned his dharma, and then after a short while, they became really, not very impressed, and they hadn't found the final deliverance, enlightenment. And so they said, is he teaching us everything that he knows? And so they asked him, they said, well, are you teaching us everything that you know? He goes, oh yeah, what I know, you know. You're a really good student, and I'm really glad that you're here, but what I know, you know. And so they decided that, this guy ain't it, and we need to go find another teacher. And so they decided to split up. And they said, well, whoever finds the teacher first, will tell the other one, and then we'll go. And so they did. They found this wonderful, Sariputra found this wonderful monk who was walking so mindfully, slowly, purposefully, elegantly, in a way he had never seen any monk walk before. Holding his alms bowl, going for his alms round in the morning, and he says, I need to go ask him who his teacher is, but I'm gonna wait until he finishes his alms round. And so he waited, and he went up to this monk whose name was Asaji, and Asaji actually was one of the first 5 disciples of the Buddha. Over the doorway right there's a tapestry of the Buddha giving his first sermon, his first teaching. And of the 5 monks kneeling down before him, Asaji is one of them. And so he goes up to Asaji and he says, there's something about you. You walk with such purpose and so mindfully and so wonderfully. Who is your teacher? And he says, oh, I am under the Blessed One, the Buddha, the one who has found the ultimate happiness, who has found deliverance through his own efforts. He is the Buddha, the awakened one. And Sariputra is like, oh man, tell me, what is his teaching? Tell me what his teaching is. And Asaji goes, look, I'm really new at this, but I can repeat this stanza for you. And he says, of those things that arise from a cause, the Tathagata has told the cause, and also what their cessation is. This is the doctrine of the great recluse. And so after the second line of that, Sariputra reached stream entry, which is like the first stage of enlightenment, which is a really, really big deal. It's really, really hard to get to. So hard that almost nobody now is there. Even today. That's how hard it is. And he goes, no need to expound on this. Just tell me where the Buddha is. And then he went to find his friend, Moggallana. And when Moggallana saw him, he knew with the excited look on his face that he found the guy, he found the man. And they said, okay, we found the guy, but now before we go, we need to say our goodbyes and express our thanks to Sanjaya. And so they went back and they said, we have found a teacher. He has found the full deliverance. He is the fully awakened one, the Buddha, which is what the Buddha means, the awakened one. And we're going to take our leave. Thank you very much. And, he didn't really like this. But they thought, Sariputra and Moggallana, they were grateful to him. And so they said, hey, why don't you come with us? I know you're not enlightened either, but and we could all just go together, all 1,500 of us. And he goes, no, I'm not doing that. And so they asked him a second and a third time, and Sanjaya goes, no, I'm not doing that. And they go, well, why? We don't understand. Why would you want to do that? And Sanjaya goes, well, because here, I'm the teacher. I have a lot of renown. I have a lot of respect, and people look up to me. If I go with you, I'll just be another student. I like being the teacher. And this didn't make any sense to Sariputra and Moggallana, like at all. And Sanjaya could see like them being completely dismayed and taken aback. And he goes, look, let me ask you a question. Are there more wise people in the world, or are there more fools? And they looked at each other and said, well, of course, there are more fools in the world. And Sanjaya goes, exactly. And the wise people will go to the Buddha, and the fools will come to me. There's never a shortage of fools. And they said, all right. They gave up. They said, okay, thank you very much for your teaching. And, Sariputra and his 500 left, Moggallana, his 500 left, and 250 of Sanjaya's original followers left to follow the teachings of the Buddha. And Sanjaya got so angry and so jealous that he was like vomiting hot blood. He was just so filled with jealousy. But he knew there would be fools to replace them. So it was no problem for him. And so they go and meet the Buddha, and they go to where the Buddha is staying, and the Buddha, watching them approach, goes, oh, those two, they will be my new chief disciples. And all they did was ask for the going forth, which just means they're just asking to become monks and under the Buddha. And that's all they did. They just asked. They would like the going forth. And the Buddha goes, Ehu Bhikkhu, which just means come Bhikkhu, come, which means you're in. I mean, it was really that easy for them. And so that's when they got their monk names, like Sariputra, which is the son of Sari, Rupasari, and then Moggallana, which is like the son of Mogali, right? So that's kind of how they just sometimes kind of name the monks. So the Buddha at the time was giving this teaching. And when the Buddha finished giving the teaching, everyone in the audience had attained full enlightenment, not just stream entry, full enlightenment, except those two, except Sariputra and Moggallana. The reason being, if they're going to be his two chief disciples, they need just a little bit more time and seasoning, I guess you could say. So Moggallana went to live in a nearby village, and then the 7th day after his ordination, he attained arahantship. And then 7 days after that, the Buddha was giving a talk to Sariputra's, I think, brother. And, Sariputra was there, the Buddha was giving a talk, and Sariputra is just fanning him, just listening intently. And right in the middle of the talk, suddenly, Sariputra becomes fully enlightened. Right? It's actually his nephew. Sorry, he was giving a talk to his nephew. But and the reason that I like a lot of these stories is they touch on a lot of normal human emotions. We heard about the jealousy of Sanjaya, and there was some grumbling about, Sariputra and Moggallana. They were young, they were kids, probably older teenagers, I would imagine. And, these more experienced older monks see that they're going to be the chief disciples. What are you kidding? And there was a lot of grumbling and a lot of jealousy because of that. And the Buddha goes, no, you might see that they're young, but they have had this aspiration hundreds of lifetimes ago. So he explained, like, every Buddha in existence has two chief disciples, every one. So all I'm doing is conforming to this paradigm, right? Those are my two chief disciples. They made this aspiration hundreds of lifetimes ago, and they might be young in like physically in actual age in this lifetime, but they've been doing this, and this has been their aspiration for so long. And they're going to do this. They're going to be my two chief disciples, right? And he needed chief disciples. I mean, the Sangha was growing larger and larger and larger, and the Buddha can't train everybody himself. It's not possible, and so they were in charge of training the new monks. They were in charge of discipline. They were in charge of training, teaching, organizing, administration. There's just so much to do, right? And so they were the ones who were doing it. And so the Buddha says, associate, O monks, with Sariputra and Moggallana and keep company with them. They are wise bhikkhus and helpers of their fellow monks. Sariputra is like a mother who brings forth, and Moggallana is like a nurse to a newborn child. Sariputra trains his pupils in the fruition of stream entry, and Moggallana trains them for the highest goal. And that's what they did, right? So Sariputra trained them until you get to the first level of enlightenment, which is so hard. Just that is so hard. And that's called stream entry, right? And then he dismissed them to Moggallana. And then Moggallana would take them to all the way until arhatship, all the way until full enlightenment. And the thing about Moggallana is he had like no patience for any like impurity whatsoever. He says, even the slightest bit of excrement has an evil smell. So he was very much a taskmaster in taking them to full enlightenment. He goes, okay, this stream entry is great. It's wonderful, and I know you feel fantastic, but your job isn't done. And so I'm taking you all the way. So that's what I'm going to do. And so they always worked in tandem to make sure as many people as humanly possible reach the final goal. And so Sariputra, he gave the monks like material and spiritual help. He looked after them in sickness. He gave them a subject of meditation. And, he always looked after his charges. He trained them in this kind of perfect conduct. So you remember when he originally saw the monk Asaji walking so slowly and mindfully during his alms round. And so this is one of the things that Sariputra would train his monks in, like perfect conduct, perfect everything. No hatred, no animosity, no nothing. To really kind of purify their hearts to a particular degree, and then he would give them to Moggallana. And they would offer, or they would administer punishments as well. So they like once banned a whole group of monks just because they wouldn't stop misbehaving. Sariputra was not only foremost in understanding the Dharma in its deepest level, but he was also the best at explaining it. So he could take any of the Buddhist teachings anyone and explain it perfectly to anyone in a multiple, in multiple ways. Because different people have different understandings. They need things explained to them in another way to help them understand. And Sariputra was very, very good at that. He was the foremost in that. He was also, infinitely kind and infinitely patient. And he was the first one to tell the Buddha that, hey, we need rules here for the Buddha. When the Sangha was getting really, really big, he said, we need rules for these monks. And the Buddha said, no, but I'll decide when the time is right. Just the time isn't right quite now. And so, some of the other things that Sariputra would do is he would, when the monks went on their morning rounds, their alms rounds, he would stay behind and sweep up and make sure things were so tidy and neat and organized that if any visitors came by, they would see that it was perfect. So to preserve the reputation of the Sangha. And again, when they were sick, he made sure that they had medicine. One time when, he was helping so much late at night that there was nowhere else to sleep inside. So it was all the spaces were taken by the other monks. And so he just slept outside. And when the Buddha saw this, he says, no. He always sleeps inside though. So this goes by seniority. And so he admonished the monks. He healed the great lay patron Anathapindika from horrible headaches with a Dharma talk, so he was very impressed with Sariputra as well. He was also known for being very patient, being very a humble man, with a great deal of humility. People tried to provoke him to anger, and it just never worked. And when they tried, they were always sorry that they did, just because of the way that he responded. He never tried to, when people were angry with him, he was never angry back. He was infinitely kind, as we saw, and infinitely patient. Even when they tried to hurt him physically, which happened, he would just never respond, like in anger or anything like that ever. One of the great things, it's said, I have not experienced this myself, but one of the great things that comes with enlightenment, with the final deliverance, are what they call supernormal powers. It could be like being psychic or being able to go to other heavenly realms or just a lot of different types of things. Sariputra, not interested. He had them, of course, but he just never cared about them. I remember, like I was there. But so what happened one time when he was deep in meditation, there was this demon, and I hate to use the word demon, but they use the word demon, that came up and gave him a very sharp blow to the head. And he was so immersed in meditation that he didn't suffer any harm. And Moggallana saw this. He goes, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He goes, "Oh, I'm fine. I just have a slight headache." and he didn't even notice. He didn't even notice. Didn't even care. When in Buddhism, there are said to be like 84,000 teachings, like 82,000 from the Buddha and then 2,000 from other monks. And so Sariputra was known for several of these. One is like the simile of the elephant's footprint. This is about the Four Noble Truths. A discourse on right view, the devas of tranquil mind, and most importantly, it was the codification of what they call the Abhidharma. And the Abhidharma is just, it's basically Buddhist philosophy, psychology, and ethics all kind of rolled into one. Like, is supposed to lead to enlightenment. So he codified that. He would be probably the perfect person for that as well. And so he lived a really, really long life, and this was his job for 44 years. Sorry. And so this was his job for 44 years. And he did this job in conjunction with Moggallana for 44 years. And after 44 years, Sariputra, in his later days, he went into meditation, and he did this kind of meditation on the fruition of arhatship. And when he was in that meditation, he asked himself a question. Because at this time, he realized that the Buddha was getting really, really old and really, really frail. His back was bad, and he had all these, illnesses and things like that. And that's a whole other story. And he asked himself in meditation, do the enlightened ones pass away first, or do the chief disciples pass away first? Like, what is the order here? So he asked this question in meditation, and the answer he got back was, it's the chief disciples. They have to go first. They have to go first. And he thought, okay, so where do I want to spend my final days before I pass away? And, his thoughts immediately went to his mother. You see, his mother was a very proud Brahmin woman who just happened to have 7 sons who were enlightened Buddhist monks. All of them. So he had 6 brothers. There were 7 brothers total, all of them enlightened Buddhist monks. And she had always rejected the Buddha's teachings, always. Again, she's a very proud woman. And so he, in meditation, also saw that she had the capability of at least stream entry. And so he had to try. And then that's what he decided to do. But he first had to take his monks and himself to the Buddha. So he went to the Buddha and he said, I have released my life force. And he asked for permission to attain final nirvana, right? Or he just asked for permission just to die, essentially. And the Buddha didn't say yes or no, because the Buddha said this is a trap, unknowingly. If I say yes, then people would think I was in favor of death. If I say no, people would think I would be too attached to this life. And so he just said, where will you do it? He said, at my mother's, in the very chamber that I was born. And the Buddha said he should give his disciples one last discourse. And so he did, where he displayed all of his wonderful powers, rising to the loftiest heights of truth and back down again to the mundane and back up and back down. And then he after he finished that, he went to the Buddha, knelt down, embraced his legs, and said, if there is anything that I have done to offend you, please forgive me. And the Buddha goes, I forgive you, but there was nothing you said to displease me. And this is really, really interesting that the Buddha said this, because the other thing that Sariputra is known for in the sutras is the Buddha admonishing him. And so sometimes the Buddha would say, that's right, Sariputra, good job. What you said was exactly right and exactly perfect. And a lot of times he would say, don't say that, Sariputra, that is not right. And then the Buddha would just expound kind of what he was trying to say. And all these times that the Buddha said, that's not right, Sariputra, don't say that, the Buddha wasn't really admonishing him. He was just really trying to show people another way of looking at it, of looking at the particular problem or the situation. And this is one of the things that Sariputra learned. And so, the Buddha gave permission for Sariputra to enter final nirvana, and the earth shook. So momentous was this occasion that the earth shook. So Sariputra circled the Buddha 3 times and then walked away facing him. So he walked backwards facing him, facing the Buddha, until he was out of sight. And then when he was out of sight, the earth shook again. And so Sariputra arrived at his mother's place, and with 500 people, and being a proud Brahmin woman, saw the people coming, and so she prepared a place for them, which took a long time, but she did it. He dismissed the bhikkhus, and then he all of a sudden came down with a grave illness, like dysentery came over him. And when one pail was carried out, a new one was brought in and filled. And his mother knew that this was the end for her son, right? And then this is the part that I really love. These divine beings, these heavenly beings came to visit Sariputra. And I'll just read this. It said, the 4 great divine kings came to visit and asked to take care of him, but he dismissed him. And then Saka, the ruler of the gods, came, and he dismissed him. And then Mahabrahma came, and he dismissed him. And his mother asked about who came, and if you are greater than they. And he said, for the 4 great kings, they are like temple attendants. For Saka, the ruler of the gods, he is like a novice who carries the bhikkhu's belongings. And for Mahabrahma, yes. He just said, yes, I am greater than him. So his mother finally understood how much of a big deal that he is, how great that he is. And then suddenly this joy and rapture arose in her. And so he decided, hey, this is a really good time to preach the Dharma to her. And he did. And so she finally, after all these years, this proud Brahmin woman realized the fruit of stream entry. So she became what came to that first stage of enlightenment. He goes, well, she goes, why didn't you show this to me before? He just said, you may go now. And he says to the monks after he called them back, he said, these 44 years that I have traveled with you, if I have ever done anything to displease you, please forgive me. And they replied with the same, may you forgive us. And just like the Buddha would do later, he lay down on his right side in the lion's pose. He went through the meditative states, up, then down, then up, and then back down again, and back down again. And then he peacefully passed away. Then, of course, they did a funeral pyre, and they buried his relics in stupas, etc. So that is my story of Moggallana. I kind of rushed it a little bit at the end because we were kind of pressed for time. Any questions on the story at all?
It's a recurring theme of food poisoning amongst the monks, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I don't know if he had food. Well, maybe he probably had food poisoning. It was dysentery, yeah. Yeah, but the thing was that he had given up his life force, and it was just time. Yeah, absolutely.
It also made me think when you were saying there were 500 and then there were 1,500. That made me think they were on Instagram.
Right. Influencers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so there's always recurring themes of there's always even numbers or 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 or 7. 7 sons and then 7 this and then 7 that, and that's just another recurring thing.
And is that because it's a verbal thing that's handed down?
Most likely, yeah. And it's probably just, the culturally just kind of how they did things. They thought it was a lucky number, so they just used 7. Absolutely, yeah. So yeah. So Sariputra was if you ever hear in the sutras where the Buddha is admonishing Sariputra, like, don't say that, Sariputra. He's not. Sariputra was a fully enlightened monk, so the Buddha was never like really admonishing him. Right? He was just trying to, hey, here's another way to look at it. Yes.
You said fully enlightened monk. Is that considered a Buddha or is that considered a Bodhisattva?
Good question. So a Buddha in the Theravada Buddhism, which is the Buddhism where I got the most of my education, in Theravada Buddhism, there's these stages of enlightenment. There's stream entry, which is the first one, and you're guaranteed to live no longer than like 7 lifetimes before full enlightenment. And then there's something called once returner. So you'll only come back one time and you'll do it then. Then there's called a non-returner, which means you'll come back but not in human form. You'll like get enlightened up in one of the heavenly realms. And then there is an arhat, a fully enlightened being. And the difference between a fully enlightened being and a Buddha, because there is a difference, the difference is a Buddha attains enlightenment through his own efforts, like without a teacher. He finds it on his own. Usually what happens is Buddhism is around for a while, and then eventually people forget about it or it falls out of favor and other things happen, right? And then like thousands of years later, things, when it's all forgotten about, someone comes again, which is the new Buddha, and he, through his own efforts, finds enlightenment and kind of rediscovers the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, all of that. And through his own efforts, attains enlightenment. He is a Buddha, the awakened one. So he finds full enlightenment, but through his own efforts, not through a teacher. And it's hard. It's hard when you find full enlightenment, because not everybody who finds full enlightenment through their own efforts becomes a Buddha. Because it's so momentous and magnanimous what happens to your head. Most people just go off on their own and never teach. So the Buddha is not the only one who found enlightenment through his own efforts, right? And he certainly wasn't the only one in India at the time who found enlightenment through his own efforts. Others did too. They just weren't inclined to teach. And those are called Pacceka Buddhas. It's really interesting how, like in Theravada, they really kind of separate all the two, all the different types of enlightenment and Buddhas and things like that. So what I'm telling you is just Theravada Buddhism. If you go to Zen, if you go to Mahayana Buddhism, they will tell you a completely different story. And that's okay. I'm not saying one is right or wrong. I'm just saying, hey, this is how I was educated, and this is kind of how I teach it, or explain it.
So the one you're speaking of, the Theravada, it's in Sri Lanka, and that's is that the original, or is it the
Theravada, it's not, I don't know if it's the original, but it's the oldest one. Yeah, it's about 500 years after the Buddha died in 483 BC. So 500 years after he died, there were about 18 different schools of Buddhism. And one of those went off to eventually be like Mahayana, and one of them became Theravada. And then even in Theravada, there's different types of Theravada, like in the different countries. Like Theravada is more Southeast Asia, like Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, Laos, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam. And then Mahayana is just more like Korea, Japan, Tibet, China, Sometimes they call it Northern Buddhism and Southern Buddhism. Like in some places in Asia, they just call it Northern Buddhism and Southern Buddhism. But it's just, Mahayana, Theravada, just different. And that was one of the things that I had to really kind of wrap my head around and kind of get over myself personally. Because I was educated in Theravada and I thought, we're the best. It's not we're the best, it's just what I was educated in first. But I had that thought with me, we're the best. And there's many different kinds, and each culture that Buddhism went to developed their own just kind of flavor that kind of integrated with their existing culture and just became what it was for that country. So, but yeah, Theravada is mostly Southeast Asia. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's join our palms together at our hearts, please, to end this class. And may the benefits of this meditation, this discussion, the story of Sariputra be received by all beings in all directions. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be joyful and at ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings be loved and seen for the beautiful, radiant beings that they are. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Yeah.